Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Brilliant Games. Today we're taking a look at one of the greatest king hunts in the history of chess. This was played in 1999. The white pieces was Garry Kasparov, one of the greatest chess grandmasters, and with the black pieces was Veselin Topalov, which was one of the greatest chess players of the 20th century. He was very aggressive. He was a fierce chess player. He was also a very, very tough opponent. So let's get into the game. So Kasparov starts off with e4, and Topalov responds with d6. This is typical of the Pirc defense, where black will follow with knight f6, g6, bishop g7. D4, knight f6, knight c3, and g6. You might say this looks similar to the King's Indian defense, but in the King's Indian defense, white's pawn is on c4. So that means that in the Pircs, white gets an extra tempo to develop faster, but he will have less queenside play. So usually in the Pircs, white will attack on the king side with his h and g pawns, while black will expand on the queen side with his cb and a pawns. So Kasparov follows up with bishop e3. This is a flexible move, a very common choice in modern practice. Bishop g7 and queen to d2. Kasparov goes for the aggressive bishop to h6 plan, trying to trade off this defender of the dark squares around black's king if black chooses the short castle. c6. So here, instead of castling, Topalov instead decides to start his queenside plan first, because he knows that if he castles, he'll simply run into bishop h6. So instead of that, he just starts his queenside play first. f3, b5. You can see both sides are starting their play on their respective flanks. Knight e2, knight d7, bishop h6, bishop takes, queen takes, and bishop to b7. Topalov develops his last minor piece and invites Kasparov to make another commitment. a3. Kasparov prevents the move b4. He also keeps his knight on e2, so when black plays e5, which is highly likely, he can keep the attention. His knight defends d4. e5, like Kasparov expected, long castles, bishop, queen to e7, king b1, and a6. Here, Topalov secures his b5 pawn. Although it's not under imminent attack, it's always nice to defend this pawn several times, as it's just a preventative measure. Knight to c1. Here, Kasparov reroutes his knight and also frees up his f1 bishop. You'll notice this game is quite quiet so far. Both players are just shuffling and improving their position. And you might say, well, this isn't a brilliant game. Where's the king hunt? This is so boring. Well, actually, it gets very exciting pretty fast. Long castles here. Topalov first starts his aggressive intentions as he castles the king long, right in the face of his queenside expansion. So his king won't have a lot of shelter in the future. This king on c8 also looks a little bit odd though, and might get attacked later on. However, white also cannot attack the king like immediately right now, so white will focus on a positional improvement of his position. Knight to b3, and now e takes d4. This is a critical move by Topalov, because he knows that if he just waits around longer, white will just bring his pieces back, develop, and he'll have a great positional advantage. So instead of that, Topalov decides, I'm just going to crack open the center and turn this into a more of an open game. c5, pushing white's pieces back, rook to d1, and now knight to b6, preparing d5, which would liberate black's pieces and also get rid of this backwards d6 pawn. g3, bringing possibilities of the bishop going to h3. King to b8, knight to a5, and now bishop to a8. Black preserves his strong bishop. He doesn't want that to get taken. Bishop to h3, d5 here. Again, black's entire plan. Queen to f4 check. And you realize the problem with long castling. Now his king is a little bit exposed and all his pawns are being pushed forward. King a7 and rook hc1. Now d4. Here, you really don't want to take here. Although Topalov wants to open the position, this opening of the position is only advantageous to white. Because after this, black's king is greatly opened up, and white has all the play here. So instead of that, he pushes forward, gaining more space. Knight to d5. Here, you really don't want to go back to a2. This is way too passive, way too cowardly. So instead, you hop into d5, challenging black's position. Takes, queen to d6, offering a trade. Here, knowing that Kasparov really needs to create some play, or else black will just convert his space advantage and ultimately get a great position. So knowing this, Kasparov sees, oh, well, black's king looks a little bit suspicious, so why don't we just sacrifice the rook? Yep, well, Kasparov knows that he needs to rip open black's defense, so he sacrifices an entire rook just to get more open lines. Now c takes d4. Now this is a mistake. Maybe Topalov was just trying to test Kasparov's idea, or Topalov was simply curious. He was wondering if Kasparov's idea would work. Here, king to b6 is the correct move. This move would have saved black, and it would likely have resulted in a draw. However, this would mean that this game would be likely forgotten and never would have been considered a brilliant game, because the rook sacrifice was simply not accepted. So, after cd4, Kasparov says, well, I already sacrificed one rook, so why not another one with rook to e7 check? He throws another rook into the fray, because he knows this rook cannot get taken. If you take it, then it's mate in 4 here, according to the computer. Queen takes d4 check, only move king to b8. Queen b6 check, bishop b7 blocks, knight c6 check, king to a8, and queen to a7 checkmate. So after rook e7 check, the sacrifice, black's king must go for a little balk with king to b6, and now queen d4 check, king takes a5, b4 check, king a4. And now you realize just how stranded black's king is. It's like locked in a cage, completely stuck at the side of the board. However, now Kasparov makes a critical mistake with queen to c3, threatening queen b3 mate. The problem with this is that it's just not simply accurate enough, and black can simply take this pawn, stop the checkmate, and it's now back down to an equal position. Later analysis showed that rook to a7 was in fact much more accurate, because now you play queen c3, and black cannot take on d5 because now a6 will fall, and that will be checkmate. So instead of that, queen c3, queen takes d5. Now white will face much more problems trying to attack black's king. Although this position does lead to quite a brilliant finish, so you want to stick around with rook to a7 now. So you realize that Kasparov messed up his move order a bit. He should have gone rook a7 then queen c3, but this does not detract from the brilliancy of this game at all. Bishop to b7, and now simply takes the bishop, because you can't take back. The queen can't take, or else queen b3 is checkmate. Rook a7 is also a critical move, if I go back, because it's the only move that really keeps up the pressure. Because instead if he played something like queen to c7, trying to threaten mate on a5, then queen to d1 check, and it's a draw by repetition. Bishop to b7 takes, just a free bishop because the queen is overloaded. Queen to c4, trying to trade, and simply another piece is taken. So now Kasparov is just down in exchange. However, he's also up a pawn, and Topalov's king is quite stranded at the side of the board. Now, king takes a3. Now, this was probably the critical mistake that ended Topalov's defenses here. And now this gives white the advantage again. Better drawing attempt would probably be rook to d1 check. And this would probably lead to a draw. So here, after king takes a3, queen takes a6, king takes b4. Now a critical move again, c3 check. Because now, white's attack shreds through black's position. And now the king hunt is truly on. King takes c3. The king is being pulled closer. If you play queen takes c3, then this loses to queen b5 and checkmate follows soon. So here, queen to a1 check, king d2. And instead, if you played king b4, then you have queen b2 check, and then you lose your queen after a couple of moves. So after king d2, queen b2 is played, and now king to d1. This is a critical position. Even though black's king is all the way down the board, it seems white's pieces are kind of not really coordinated, because this bishop's over here, this rook's over here. The only real piece that's next to the king is the queen. So how will white continue this attack? Furthermore, white's king is also looking a little bit suspicious. This move, rook to d2, might start putting uncomfortable pressure on white's king. However, Kasparov has already calculated everything. He's already calculated every line, and he simply shatters this illusion that black is getting back in the game with the move bishop to f1, overloading the black queen. You can't take because just queen c2, king e1, and rook to e7, and checkmate in 1. So here, this brilliant bishop back to f1, overloading the black queen, and there's nothing he can do. He tries one more thing, rook to d2, counterattacking. If you take the queen, then I will take your queen, and it simply trades down into an endgame, and this is a draw. So instead of that, you play another accurate move, rook to d7. This pin, this pin and the distraction of the black rook will now prove fatal, as black will lose the queen, because after it takes on d7, you simply take the queen and you take on h8, and white is now up a full queen. And it's also amazing that Kasparov saw that this queen on b2 will now go all the way across the board and see that rook, which is very, very clutch. Bishop c4, h8, takes on h8, rook d3, and after here, Kasparov simply converts his extra queen after a couple of more moves. Here, Topalov resigned as the queen is getting in through the dark squares and will infiltrate black's position. Well, this was a really awesome game. I mean, just first of all, Kasparov with the brilliant tactic, rook takes d4, sacrificing an entire rook. And then after that, he's like, well, one rook isn't enough. Sacrifice another rook, a rook to e7 check. And here, he continues sacrificing pieces, drawing the king forward. Here, a little bit of an inaccuracy, but otherwise, this was just an absolutely brilliant game. And after Topalov makes another critical error, the king is doomed. His fate is sealed. He gets pulled closer and closer to white's back rank. Now it's finally leads on this black rank, and even though it seems that white's attack is over, he still clutches up with this king move, bishop to f1, overloading the queen. And after that, another accurate move, rook to d7, and there's no hope for black. He loses his queen, and it's just a conversion of the extra material. So, I mean, just a brilliant game, an amazing manhunt for the black king, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.